Yep. Okay, you're recording.
Okay, thanks. And welcome everybody to the May meeting of the Manhattan Community Board 1 Transportation and Street Activity Permit Committee. I'm Betty Kay, the chair of the committee. I'm joined by Michael Francoeur, who's a co-chair. Jess Coleman is gone today because he's getting married. I guess that's a good excuse. And I also want to welcome the district manager, Lucian Reynolds. If you go to the next slide, and so we have a relatively short agenda tonight. And so I'd like to start off by inviting the people who are here to speak, led by Christopher Lee on the Holland Tunnel traffic improvement safety at Vestry Street. Chris, I know you're here, so if you'd like to introduce the people who are going to speak, and if you want to deal with Michael if you have anything for screen share.
Yeah, Chris, let me know if you want to. Do you want screen controls?
Yeah, sure. I have a PowerPoint right here. I can email it to you, or I can control screen, whatever's easier for you.
I will make you the presenter.
Okay, great.
I'd love for you to email it to me anyway after this.
Sure.
So yeah, now down at the bottom of your screen, you should have share.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. So hi, thank you for having us. My name is Chris Lee, Senior External Relations Manager for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. With me today, I have the General Manager of the Holland Tunnel, Ricky Ramirez, Traffic Engineering Department, Ted Babisky. I have and our colleagues from the DOT, Greg Haas, Cole Galage, and Matt Lorenz. And we're happy to be here. And we just wanted to talk to you guys briefly about some of the things we've been working on collaboratively to address traffic management issues and improvements at the Holland Tunnel, or around the Holland Tunnel, around the area of the Holland Tunnel. So I'll share my screen now. Make sure you guys, I'm sharing a PowerPoint. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. So since the fall of last year, the Port Authority, the City DOT, and the NYPD have been partnering and working on to evaluate and improve traffic practices in the area around the New York approach to the Holland Tunnel. One of the first things that we recognized from various feedback in the area and from our operations team and from the DOT is that there sometimes is a need for traffic enforcement agents. Right now, the NYPD has stepped up and they are doing some of those enforcements at select intersections. These are, we consider, the hottest intersections, I believe. Spring and Varick, Broome.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
Chris, don't want to interrupt you, but it's showing not in presenter view on our screen. We could see it's kind of like minimizing the slides and showing the speaker notes as well. So if you want to try to, I know I've had this happen to me as well.
We're not seeing the slideshow. We're not seeing the slideshow part where it's one big slide.
So what are you seeing?
We're showing two slides.
Do you happen to have two screens, Chris, in your monitor?
I do have two screens, yeah.
Maybe try switching which one you're displaying. I've had that happen.
Okay, I appreciate this, man. Thank you.
No problem.
I'm going to stop sharing. Now I stop sharing, right?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, you have. Yeah, this has happened to me before as well, but I can never figure it out
guys. I'm so
in the moment. Oh, no worries.
How about now?
Not sharing right now.
How about now?
No, it's like it was before. It's two slides. You've just removed the notes.
All right. Alternatively, you could just export as PDF and then just open the PDF.
Let me do that. This is embarrassing. I'm very sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. Or just send a solution and he can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, don't sweat it. It's par for the course.
Yeah, it's happening. But you could stop
I'm not
sharing your
doing-
screen or
Just give me 1 second.
Lucian, if you want to move Pat Moore and Vicky Cameron. They're not on committee,
or
but
How about now?
looking much better. And then under view, just full screen it and you'll be good to go.
It's much better. Oh, perfect.
now you got it.
Molto bene.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Sorry about that.
Yeah, of course.
So anyway, these are the intersections that the NYPD is currently doing enforcement at. Varick and Spring, Varick and Broome, and Varick and Watts. They are not doing it 24/7, but they are doing it often at times that they think is the most appropriate. And we thank the NYPD for stepping up and doing that. We think it's helpful in those areas. Greg, did you? I'm going to kick it to you right now to talk about some of the street construction modifications.
The street oh, yes, on Spring Street, and well, this is more in CB2 than in CB1, but there was a problem of the buses, the M21 bus, which runs back and forth on Houston Street. And when it reaches its western terminus to turn around, it goes down Washington and then left on Spring and then left on 6th Avenue back up to Houston. And the construction on Spring Street slowed down the bus so much that the bus wouldn't even take its full route. When it was going westbound on Houston, instead of going all the way to Washington, it would turn left at Varick, which is no picnic either. But that's how bad Spring Street was. And we got the developer to make sure there's at least 2 lanes on the block of Spring Street between Hudson and Varick so that traffic moves better. So we've done that. There's now 2 lanes open during the PM rush hour on Spring Street.
And the same thing, Greg, I switched the slide to Hudson as well.
Yes, on Hudson, north of Canal, again, there was construction there. There is construction there. And there's supposed to be 2 lanes that get through, and it wasn't the markings were not, the temporary markings for the 2 lanes to get through were not very clear. And they were so unclear that people were illegally parking. But we got the contractor to do the markings over. Now they're more clear. So now there are 2 lanes getting by. We're talking about on northbound Hudson, just past Canal.
Great, thank you. Now, also on Hudson, in November of 2021, permanent delineators were installed between Canal and Hubert to better organize the local Hudson Street traffic, left lanes and tunnel-bound lanes in the right lanes. This replaced a coning operation that would happen every day at sort of peak times, but now it is permanently in place. The next step we're going to do is we're going to further improve management of traffic around Hudson and Vestry. DOT and the Port Authority propose to install permanent delineators across Vestry Street where you see these red arrows. The pattern is currently in place during PM weekday periods. We're going to extend it to 24/7, and we think it's going to improve safety at the intersection, particularly for pedestrians that are crossing Hudson Street. We're going to update the traffic signs to indicate there is no tunnel access from Vestry Street. So this is going eastbound. You cannot cross Vestry and turn into the dedicated 2 tunnel lanes. You would have to go northbound on Hudson here. Install delineators across the intersection, and that's going to replace what we do now, which is a coning operation across during PM peak period. And those are the things. Those are the 3 main things we wanted to just tell you about. Highlight the things we were doing in the area. This is my contact information, my email address, and the number for the Manhattan Borough Commissioner's office, the DOT Commissioner's office. And we have time, if you have time, for a couple of questions that you might have. So go ahead.
I'm looking for hands.
I'm going to stop sharing, okay?
That's fine. Does anyone have any questions? It looks like not.
I just wondered, could you just put that contact information back up for a moment more?
Sure.
I could put it in the chat box for you.
Otherwise, Data, I have a screen share. I took a snapshot. I can send it to you.
Betty, I have a
Okay.
question.
Oh, please, Lucian.
Just because I know that I'm just going to check real quick the attendee section. I want to make sure that I can think of questions that that members that aren't here might ask. What does DOT believe would be the overall impacts to through traffic or better yet, the people who live on Vestry Street? What will be their new pattern impacted by these delineators? Who will be the most inconvenienced by this? Let's put it that way.
I can take that. If you're a pedestrian, there will be no inconvenience whatsoever. In fact, it'll be a little bit safer for pedestrians. If you're a driver, if you drive a car, what this does is if you're heading eastbound on Vestry Street, when you get to Hudson Street, you will only be able to turn left into the local lanes, which are to the left of the delineators. You will not be able to turn left into the tunnel-bound lanes. And you will also not be able to go through on Vestry Street either. So to get to Vestry Street east of Hudson, you would have to go up Hudson and turn right, as opposed to going through on Vestry Street. So it would not affect pedestrians at all. It'll help them. There's very few drivers who make these moves that would be disallowed. As very few drivers anyway. It's like 20 an hour.
Wow, that's very low. And I guess the follow-up is, do you see Vestry as being a street that's abused by drivers who are trying to cut the line? Will this kind of reduce vehicular movements that are unnecessary?
Oh yeah, that's the whole reason for doing it, using Vestry Street as a shortcut to the Holland Tunnel. That's why, like Chris said, this is done every weekday from about 3 to 7 p.m. with cones. So it's done anyway during the evening rush hour with cones. So this would make it 24/7.
Wait, I just want to make sure that that's super duper.
That's the whole reason for doing it, to eliminate the cheaters who are using those side streets to get to the Holland Tunnel.
And you feel that overall the safety impacts from not having kind of the type of people in my experience that would try to cut the line are also probably, the Venn diagram of people who cut the line and aggressive drivers is almost a circle in my mind. Do you feel like this will improve safety outcomes in the area significantly?
It will make it a little bit safer to cross Hudson Street, and there would be less driving on the local streets from Hubert up to Canal and between the West Side Highway and Hudson, and that little 4x4 block area there. You won't be able to get to the Holland Tunnel from there. So any Holland Tunnel bound vehicles who today use those side streets, they will be eliminated. So yes, in that respect, it'll make it safer. They'll be on,
Okay.
they'll have to get on Hudson Street further down.
And my last question, I promise, is there any sort of kind of campaign? I know the signage will change. Is there any other kind of campaign in the first couple of days of this treatment going in, or weeks, to, you know, additional big signage to make it clear for drivers why, or what, you know, that there is a change, just to kind of prevent there being that classic Holland Tunnel gridlock effect while they kind of learn the new routing?
We weren't planning on doing anything like that, no. But we can, but
Okay.
When is
So-
this planned to occur? The installation?
Well, we wanted to talk to you guys first, let you know what we're doing, and then I'm probably gonna talk to some of the residents on Vestry Street, but I think we're gonna move ahead in the coming weeks on this.
Okay, thank you. And Data, if you question?
Yeah, I did. I know I was supposed to put on my camera too, so I can. Sorry, I have a slow device.
That's okay. You can
I'll put the camera on later. I'm really here. So do you feel there will be compliance with flexible delineators? That's one question. And the other question is, just, you're saying that those clearer markings on Spring Street are eliminating a lot of the illegal parking around that construction area?
on Hudson Street, not Spring Street, Hudson Street.
Oh, on Hudson,
Yeah,
between
Hudson
between
Be-
Spring and,
between
Okay.
Canal and Dominic.
oh, okay. Why were you mentioning Spring? I guess I lost that.
That's a second. There's two things. There was the
Right.
construction on Hudson,
Okay.
and then there's also construction on Spring between Hudson and Varick. So two separate things.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to, the construction on Spring between Hudson and Varick, where I thought you said that you're going to keep 2 lanes open.
Correct. Yes.
And
During the
it
rush
was,
hour, during the PM rush hour.
right, and it was partly clogged because the markings weren't there, so people were parking illegally in that
No,
construction
when I
area.
said that, I was
Okay.
talking about Hudson Street.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's 2 issues.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so then I guess I just wanted to know if you feel those flexible delineators will have compliance.
We cannot guarantee compliance. We have the same delineators on Varick Street, and traffic that is originating from the east, when they go westbound on Broome, they're supposed to bear left onto Watts. And that's why we have TEAs that Chris mentioned. The cheaters used to go straight on Broome Street and drive right over the delineators. So can we guarantee that there'll be compliance with the delineators? No.
Okay. Okay, but
It
it's,
discourages it, but we cannot guarantee that nobody's going to drive over it.
but it's a stronger attempt than just putting out cones for the 4 hours a day.
Yeah, yes. And it's also less work too. People don't have to go out and put them down and pick them back up. Yeah.
Well, hopefully if
You know,
they're there all the time, people will kind of learn.
Yeah, that's a good point, Betty.
Definitely, there's a need for a bollard program where you just secretly replace one delineator with a bollard and just move it around the city. No one ever knows what a bollard is. It's like 3-card Monte with a bollard.
Sounds like a reality show.
That's Lucian's next career. I guess, are there any other questions?
There's definitely, I'd love for a member of the public who I would say precipitated this conversation and project is with us, Tom Spanos, who wrote to the board, wrote to the Port Authority. So definitely like for him to have an opportunity to speak and give his comments, if that's okay with you, Betty.
No, that's fine. I was looking, his hand wasn't up, so.
Yeah, Tom, you can unmute yourself and put your camera on.
Hi, I'm here. I didn't necessarily have a question. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well, first of all, thank you for, I mean, especially to the Port Authority and Ricky Ramirez and the team around him for driving this, because I think that, you know, restored my faith in government a little bit, how responsive they were in particular to these issues. And I know Lucian was very gracious as well in terms of following up. But I mean, I think this is a really important step to help improve safety in this community. I do, you know, think that it is important that people are able to cross the street safely, of course, and the gridlock that occurs in this particular intersection when the cones are removed is chaotic. So, you know, it will be an orderly line. It's not perfect, and sometimes there are people that remove the cones, which I imagine will be the same frequency that people go over the cones. But by and large, when the cones are up, it does create a level of an orderly line, at least on Hudson. And then as soon as the cones are removed and if there's traffic, it's chaos. And on Sunday night, I witnessed a person get out of their vehicle and for 25 minutes literally decided to direct traffic. I have a full video of this. Direct traffic at the intersection, helping people from Vestry cross over and cut into the Hudson Street line. So this kind of you know, it's repetitive and just continuous behavior, especially on weekends where there seems to be no police or, you know, management at all of the traffic. And the reality is on Saturday or Sunday, it can go from 10, 11 o'clock in the morning until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. It's worse than on a Monday or Tuesday at this point. So, you know, there needs to be kind of this full 24/7 type of regulation on this. So I think that this will be great. And I think for, you know, people on the other side of Vestry Street, as long as the canal lane is kept clear, and that people, because right now the Port Authority, at least Monday through Friday, puts cones down on the other side of Hudson. I know they can't put permanent delineators there, but I do think that, you know, learned behavior that far lane is kept clear so that you can, you know, not be waiting on the tunnel line to go and access the other part of Vestry. It should be fine. So I think that's the only concern I would have for our neighbors on the other side, is to make sure that they can still, you know, access their part of Vestry Street without, you know, having to be stuck by basically bad drivers who decide to go down the canal lane on Hudson and you know, essentially block that through lane on the east side of Hudson Street. So thank you. I know this is sort of a broader issue, but I think this will make a huge difference in at least helping solve the problem.
It works like this, Nico.
Was somebody speaking?
I may have unmuted for a second and you heard the rest of my family talking.
That's fine, as long as I'm not cutting off someone. No, I agree, because I hope the safety will carry over, because I know there are lots of times I don't go across Canal Street to do some shopping because the traffic can be so crazy at some times. And I'm not talking about rush hour, I'm talking about weekends and other times. So I see the safety benefits to outside of the rush hour times. And hence I don't have a problem with going from cones to delineators. But it'll be interesting to look at, and it'll be interesting to get some feedback after a while to see, does that assist? I know it's CB2, but nevertheless, the bus routes, because we do have members of our community who take the bus routes to that level and just walk the last couple blocks. And don't like that the buses terminate prior to the end of the route, and they get stuck farther from home than they anticipated. But thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you very much for your presentation.
Well, thanks for having us.
Betty, I just have a couple more questions.
Thank you.
Well, is there Port Authority communicates with, what is the Google turn-by-turn direction service?
Like Google Maps.
Sorry. Not Google Maps, but there's the other one. The
Waze? Are you talking about Waze?
Waze, yeah. Will you be communicating with Waze for people who are trying to access points east of Hudson on Vestry to have better routing, so they're not hitting that delineator line and having to go around? There may be a more direct route if they're trying to get to that point from the west side, just to make Waze aware to route them around that obstacle. And then if there's any kind of signage suggesting a detour route for those who are just learning about, they're hitting the delineators for the first time, but they want to go to points east of Hudson on Vestry, what the best route for them to achieve that goal. Those are the only two wayfinding questions, recommendations I have.
And I
So I could-
apologize. I didn't have my hand up fast enough. So after you answer, I have one question.
Please, Tammy, speak.
Lucian hit my first one. So that was my first one, is whether or not you can do a notification to Waze as well as Google Maps, because Waze absolutely 100% knows the timing that things are closed, because you will get different directions. Being a driver, I can tell you that, going through the tunnel as to how to access there. So it'd be super important to get that information out to those organizations. And also, within a week or so of making the change, I would appreciate some mapping and information and materials that we can share through our newsletter that goes out on the weekends, post on the website. It is a good change that we would like to make sure that people know about, because that will help cut down on difficulty. So whatever kind of PR and social media campaign that you have that we can tag and use for our distribution system would be highly appreciated.
Yeah, no problem. We'll get that to you so you can put in your newsletter. We'd actually appreciate that. That'd be great. And
Excuse me, are you talking about in advance of, because I know Tammy said within a couple of weeks, but you mean advance notification that it's coming when they know when they're actually going to do it? Or do you mean after?
Advance.
Okay.
Because it's fine for people to search for it after, but I'm looking to cut down on the frustration of people who, could read this and then automatically say, okay, this is good information to know, and plan accordingly, and cut down on the road rage.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can provide like a graphic, we'll tweet it out and put it in our newsletter, and we'll push it out through as many channels as we can to make sure that people are aware that that change is coming.
Yeah, Lucian, if you would go to like Carl Glassman and Broadsheet knows, I'm sure they'd like to do an article in advance to talk about the changes.
Yeah, I can talk to the Port Authority to see if that's something that they're interested in, and we can definitely make that connection for them.
Yeah, no problem.
Great. Well, with that, it looks like there are no other questions. So thank you very much. And
Well, thank you.
look
Thank you
forward
for
to
having us, guys. And my email address is in the chat. If anyone has any follow-up questions, we're happy to answer them. Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, next topic. This is coming back from last month. So this is again funding for the DOT Master Streets Plan, which we supported and it passed in committee quite easily, but it failed at full board. Hence, we're doing it again. And I thought about this actually a lot after it failed. And I really do think a lot of it is people do not understand what the plan is, because there were a lot of abstentions, as well as some negatives that really surprised me because it seemed counter to their interests. So maybe education is the way to go. If you go to the next slide, and then people can discuss it. I've added some new whereas statements that I'd be interested in getting some of your feedback on. For instance, I looked through all of our resolutions where we supported things that could potentially be funded by this kind of project. So for instance, the complaints that we have a dearth of public space, the streets plan's 1 million square feet of new public space would be compatible with or could allow for space under and around the Brooklyn Bridge, pedestrian improvements in the financial district, the calming of traffic for students and pedestrians on John Street, and upgrades on Park Row. I have April 2022 here because they haven't posted that into the archives yet. And what I'm trying to do is link all of these to our actual resolutions. So people who get it can go back and look at what we said. Jessica Lapin from the Downtown Alliance and the DOT Commissioner tweeted out this week, in fact, that they had to talk about the importance of pedestrian safety and priority in FIDI. So we have partners within our district that are also looking to this. Another partner in our district, which Patrick knows well, the Financial District Neighborhood Association, has been advocating for pedestrian priority improvements in our historical grid layout, as in the Make Way for Lower Manhattan. The streets plan safety improvements should include the long-awaited changes that we've had resolutions for pedestrian and vehicular safety on Canal Street, as well as pedestrians with the Gateway to Chinatown project. So again, I had to dig through all these resolutions. And finally, Manhattan Community Board One's request for barrier protection for bike lanes on Center Street, Lafayette Street is consistent with the street plan's goal of increasing and protecting bicycle lanes. So this is just referencing the streets plan back to things actions already taken by the community board. Anyway, any comments or discussion? Again, I see no hands.
Eddie, my question is,
I'm trying to put my hand up.
sorry.
Okay, well,
Thank you
okay,
too, but go ahead, Tammy.
So my
let's
question,
have Tammy, then Vendetta, then Patrick.
so my question is going to be, because I was so sad that this failed at full board, is I agree with you. I think a lot of it has to be with education. I am not 100% sold on how the education's got to work, but I would hope that we could think creatively within this committee on how to get the broader information out and then get the resolution out with the information to anybody else. And if they have questions, I'm even willing to have a Q&A after everything's been passed in exec, just because this is so important. So you let me know as chair how I can help support this lift and how you feel as a committee it was misunderstood in terms not of, gee, people didn't this, but what further information is needed. And with that, I close my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go on. I think it was Dana, were you next?
Okay.
Then
Okay,
Patrick
my
and
name's
Michael.
been said. Okay, I will go. One thing, yeah, piggybacking off of what Tammy just said, I really felt like people I don't think they'd looked at this 95-page plan and knew what it was. And might be worth in our motion listing the 10 goals that the plan has, because it's just 10 main goals. And the first two are the huge goals, safety and equity. And this plan is all about giving street improvements to areas that have been underserved by street improvements, which I think is really something a lot of people on CB1 care about, equity. But the 10 goals, safety, equity, mode shift and providing transportation options, access to jobs, accessibility, public space, sustainable infrastructure, curb management, freight, meaning like better handling of freight, which of course is a CB1 issue all the time, and public participation. So I think if the full board understood, like, these are the 10 goals of this plan, like most of these are goals that CB1 would get behind. And I guess the other thing is that it's really about a variety of tools. It's not ever a one size fits all. They're going to be they're going to be using all the different tools to roll it out in an appropriate way to each area. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Patrick?
Yeah, so I agree. Education's the way to go. I just didn't fully understand what any of the objections. Some of them I sort of heard, but I didn't really understand what the objections were at full board. And I don't know if that's because people weren't able to articulate or they're misunderstanding what this was all about. That's a lot of the abstentions, or whether people just weren't being candid enough about why it is that they oppose something like this. And look, that is what it is. And when if people are going to oppose it because they have a fundamental disagreement with expanding bike lanes or protected bike lanes, etc., just come out and say that. But you're pretty much not going to change those minds. I think educating those who really didn't understand what this was about or might have been taken off course a little bit will help out a lot. And in addition to, so I appreciate the whereases, Betty. I think that's a great idea, especially linking back. I would also encourage you to look at CB1's district needs statements for, I don't know, the past 5 to 10 years. I'm sure there's the $500,000 for the FIDI specific pedestrian mobility study that's been in there for many, many years. And I think there were, I just can't quote them, other initiatives too that the community board has supported that would sort of fit within that model. And then, like Tetta said, sort of wholeheartedly agree putting the 10 goals of the plan in there. And then I think when it comes, Tammy's idea is also good, shepherding it educationally through executive committee. And then when it comes time to present it at the full board in May, and I'm happy to volunteer, but I think it's incumbent upon those of us who are here at the meeting, because I don't see many of the folks who vociferously objected for one reason or another, whether they were candid about it or not. I don't see them here tonight. So I'm happy to speak up at that meeting, at the monthly meeting, and I encourage others on the committee to do so if you're supporting this tonight, like I will, to speak up in favor of it and help answer those questions and help allay people's fears so that they know what this is about.
Thank you. I do think that is the issue, and perhaps one of the starts will be taking Tammy up with bringing some of this to executive first, just to get some of their feedback on the changes that have been made. Because again, some of the people surprised me, such as when Paul voted against it, and yet he has been, as head of parks, it's not a surprise, has been very much for many of the things, such as that have to do with public space. Right. Including the Park Row, which they passed on the same day that he voted against the streets plan, which seems like a contradiction on its face value.
Yeah.
So my biggest concern about the 10 goals, because I looked at that, was there a couple of red flags in there that I think we're better off not to mention, such as the mode share. For some people, that's enough to vote no because it takes away from their cars, in their minds. So I would like more feedback from people, because again, this is already 2 pages long and people obviously didn't read it the last time.
So
I mean, maybe
point,
just, maybe just the first 2 goals, because those are the primary ones, transportation and equity.
Betty, I have my hand up.
Wait, I know. Let's let Patrick finish, and then Michael's next, and then
Sorry,
Mitch, you can go after Michael.
Thank you.
I would sort of err on the side of caution and include, if not the 10 points, then some more detail and summary about the plan. Because what I would worry about is that at the full board, again, it might be misunderstood, not fully explained, and someone might mischaracterize what it is. Whereas if it's within our resolution, then it's a fair debate over whether it does this, does that. The policy goals can be achieved, but at least the goals are out there. Anyway, my 2 cents. Sorry, Mitch, didn't mean to step on you.
Yeah, no, I will look at that again, because again, these are not all the whereas statements, and some of them may already be in there as they were from last month. But I'll look at that again. Michael, and then Mitch.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for thinking critically about this, Betty. I think I agree with everyone, but I also agree with the fact that I'd like to add, I think there is maybe an educational issue, but I also think that if people aren't reading the resolutions before full board and making this a chunkier resolution, I think that's actually maybe fine if people aren't really reading through it that much to begin with, but I just don't know how much of an impact it'll have. And so I do agree with Patrick. I usually try to, I mean, at full board, I know a lot of us try to help make sure the meetings go long, and so I know a lot of us sometimes don't speak up unless you have something really important to say. But I do think on this one, I'll just, I think I should say something after you give your presentation, so that people know, because otherwise what happens is people who have objections speak, and it gives resolutions the veneer of being controversial, or people sniff like, oh, what is this? This sounds like this is something people are a little, have strong feelings about. And if they haven't read the resolution, I think that's what leads to a lot of the abstentions. But I could be wrong, because I also struggle, like Patrick. I don't really quite know where to go on this, because we just didn't get that. We just got a lot of abstentions on this, and so it's really tough for me to say what it was. So yeah, I think our best bet is say why. Try to give the story as to why we think this is important. I think it's really great adding in these specific things that we've supported in the past. I actually think that really is important. And then, if it doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass. That's fine. But yeah, that's where I am.
But do you agree taking it through executive, which will get at least that group of people, many of them who voted no, a lot of the chairs, to at least get a little more familiar with it, because it's another opportunity to read it or to hear it?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think any opportunity we have just to give people the story of what this is, because we're all familiar with it because we come to these committee meetings, but if you're not familiar with it, then you're not familiar with it.
Okay, so you agree with making the changes for the education, maybe going to executive committee to educate that group, and members speaking up and saying something because you've had more opportunity to think about it and discuss it.
Yeah, and also just to give a vision or an audio retelling of what this resolution is.
Yes.
Is kind of, I think, just what people need, and so I guess we just didn't hit it hard enough last time.
Great, sounds like we're getting a plan. And Mitch, what have you got to say?
Okay, something you just said, actually, like, I agree with this one point, but I think I have, you had mentioned where somebody like Paul, who, and like I said, I don't know him that well personally or have spoken to him, but you said somebody like Paul, who's in the past has agreed with many of these other things where they vote no. I want to make the analogy where, like on a, say, the hazardous obstruction violation thing, where I felt I was forced to vote no because even though I agree with 90% of everything that was there, I was against the citizen versus citizen. And I'm not in debating that now, but just using that as a principle, not analogizing the substance. That, it's almost like when Congress has like a bunch of great things, nobody's against safe streets, and then there's like a few other things in the stipulation of the bill that somebody feels that they're not for, and they feel because of that 1 or 10% thing, they need to vote against the whole thing, when 90%, like everything Detta mentioned, is great. Like that she read. I'm on my phone, so I can't read the whole thing, but it's safe streets and this and that. Those are all wonderful things that I couldn't see anybody against. But maybe there's something in there, whether it has to do with the car owners giving up some spaces or this or that. I don't know. I'm a pedestrian and a transit user. But I think that if taking, like, not trying to put everything in there where, you could get the substance of what you want, because if there's that one thing that somebody doesn't like, but 90% of what they do like, they're forced to vote no. And so I think that might be an answer to why some of the people that you were surprised to vote no, because there might have been one thing out of the 10 that they weren't comfortable with, but they were forced to vote no because everything was combined in the whole thing. So if you have any ideas about how to kind of, at least get the gist of the things in without like having some of those other things that could make a no vote, that might be one suggestion.
No, Mitch, I agree. That's why I said some of the things that are red flags, I'd rather not include them.
No.
But in terms of the no's, I don't know how many of those people we're going to convince.
Right. Anyway, when you get,
Or
and
the
when,
abstentions to get them off the phone.
right, when you get on, when we got back, well, it's already a done vote, but like I said, in the future, like I said, I think you would have 100% on the other thing that I was talking about. And maybe another time I wanted to like ask you and Tammy, I don't know if this is the right forum or just like offline. I just wanted to put it out there to see if anybody else feels the same. When I hear people saying, you know, I don't have enough information, I'm confused, so I'm going to abstain. That I understand that. I've said that myself. But then in reality, the abstention counts as a no. So if they don't have enough information and they're confused, then I almost feel like there should be an abstention, and then there should be a different type of extension that vote doesn't count yes or no. Because if you're confused, but then your vote counts as a no, then it's a solid vote against. And I've just been thinking about that for a while, and I was just wondering if any. I know it's the Roberts rules and the policy, but you know, it seems like it's almost like if somebody's really confused, then their vote shouldn't count if it's a serious, if it's a truthful. I don't know. I need more information. And
I'm going to have Patrick come in here because he's the parliamentarian.
As a parliamentarian, yeah, I could jump in on that. And I hear the frustration with that. It drives me bananas when I hear that. I think practically, even if you created some theoretical second class of sort of votes that, I don't mean it that way.
I know, no, I agree with you. Yeah.
Class of votes that are sort of set aside, because when we say that an abstention counts as a no, what we're really saying is it doesn't count as a yes. And you need so many votes to carry
right.
a measure, right? So if there are, let's just take the number 50. So if you have 50 people who are all present, and for quorum purposes, you need 26 to carry any measure. So even if you said, well, an abstention doesn't count as a no, just kind of cast aside as a I don't know or not present or something. If it's still counted for quorum, it kind of doesn't matter mathematically. You still need to get to 26.
Right.
The only way you could do it, I guess, is to not count them as quorum, which I think would be a bag of problems we may not be able to surmount legally.
The thing is, let's say you have like 20 yeses and you have 10 solid no's, and then you have 20 abstentions. So the vote fails, and you know as well, I mean, it's no secret. There are some people no, and they're happy to put that out there. Then there are some people that want to vote no, but they like to play the politics of it, so that, well, I really didn't vote no, so they do abstain, even though they know that that's counting as a no, and they're going to get what they want. And so, that type of thing, it's like, I just wanted to see if anybody else felt the same, and if
No, I do feel the same, and it's something I've thought a lot about. And it's the quandary is how do you get over the basic notion that as a deliberative body, you got to get to 26.
Right.
Or
if somebody really, Peter, if somebody really is being truthful, and some of the people that said they were really confused and need more information, I did believe some of them. Then, like, I feel like in humane, like that vote shouldn't count yes or no because they need more information.
But anyway. The problem is not a yes.
Mitch, we need 51% of the quorum present voting yes.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter how you divide up the other percentage. You need, no matter what, you need 51% of the quorum that's present to vote yes for something to carry.
Right. I mean, I understand. I just some of the things, I think some of the people vote abstain because they know it's going to count as a no, and it's anyway. I just wanted to bring that out there, but thank you.
Yeah, thanks. We're going to go after the education part and hope that helps. And so, hands down, if you don't still have a question, and Pat Moore.
All I wanted to say is that there have been many issues throughout my years on the board where we needed to have much more education. We needed to talk more about it, like the arcades, where it just came up in a full board meeting, and most of the board didn't really understand the full depth of the problem. So I think it's a great idea to take this to exec, but I also think that we should send out a special notice letting the board know that this topic is going to be discussed at executive committee, and encouraging them to attend, because as many of you have said, the people who voted no or abstained are not here tonight.
Well, and would you agree that if they can't or don't want to attend, to at least go look at the tapes on YouTube?
Yeah. Yeah. So in that special notice that, this topic is going to be discussed in depth, and I hope we don't have a long agenda at exec, that this topic is going to be discussed. And if you cannot attend, then to look at the tapes on YouTube and give them the link and say, because this is coming for a vote again this month, and we really need to pass it one way. We need to get it voted on one way or another.
Although, you know what, I'm more optimistic than you. I think going through the resolution so that people actually have to see the content at executive, they will be less negative.
If
I
they
really do
attend,
think they had no idea.
they've got to come.
I'm optimistic. Yes. Tammy?
Okay, so I'm going to address a couple things. First, for Mitch's comment, we are all public servants. We're appointed, you applied, you interviewed, and you're appointed. Your role is not just to show up once a month, is to read the information. Where people get confused when we were in person, a lot of people read it when they were first sitting down during the public session and there were printed copies. I really don't care how people read it, but they need to be prepared for the full board meeting. It's just really very basic and simple. I appreciate, because I don't get a chance to always read either. I don't get a chance to do as much due diligence on some topics. And so ask the question, no problem. But if you've seen the topic and you didn't have enough information at the full board and you don't show up tonight and there was no email to either the district manager, the committee chair, or the board chair that said, I know I abstained and it went back to committee, I can't make it. Can you ensure that I get the information? It's frustrating for the office and for everybody on this committee, and I am sorry for that. We will send out everything. I do not agree with putting, unfortunately, only 2 of the goals, because I think if we put 2, people are going to say, what happened to the rest of the goals? Why are they being hidden? There's nothing to be hidden. It's all public information. We're going to share it out. In fact, we'll share everything after this meeting. It'll go in the newsletter. It'll get another round of information before executive to the full board that says, here it is again for round 3 and 4. Come to exec if you have questions, because at full board, everyone should be well educated. I think that's the best we can do. And if people feel that it's okay not to prepare, to come and not be, and well, then that's a question that they need to think about if they really want to be on the board, because the amount of work that goes into it, quite frankly, is a lot.
Tammy, I agree with you, but like that's why I was thinking about that. Then that's why their abstentions kind of like not truthfully, like become a no vote for mathematical reasons, like what Detta said. But it's not like, it's almost like I wish there was some way where that vote doesn't count, because it takes away from the substance of what really needs to be done, whether it's on either side.
Remember, on the same token respect, if I'll flip that vote on you, Mitch.
Yes.
We did a negative resolution. If you're doing a no unless, and abstaining could be a yes at that point. So
no, I agree.
Both positive. There's no class A, class B stocks in community board. It's just read the info, vote with your best. And I just really felt that people, were honest when they said they were uneducated. We can do the best we can and make them educated.
No, I agree. My point, I agree on both, whether it's yes or no. I'm not saying one or the other. I'm saying whether it's yes or no. I almost wish we could, I wish there was a way we could throw out. I don't know, so I can't make a good vote whether it's yes or no. That's what I was thinking about.
Mitch,
but
we're
anyway.
all frustrated by it, but we also, as you said, you can't make it not part of the quorum.
The only other thing that I would suggest, Betty, is there were some points on the 15 that you can put in the whereases there where the community has gone on record before with concerns. And the fact that, knowing that we do have a board that is not 100% in one way or the other, I think there is a good perspective to take a look at it and say, where we have concerns on the point plans to try and find balance. Because I do think in Community Board 1, specifically where we have commercial corridors like a Broadway, and then you have tiny, tiny little historic streets, the same treatment does not work on each one of those venues. And therefore,
Streets plan isn't asking for that.
correct, but people aren't thinking that. The streets plan takes, I think that if we caveat it with community board input and treatment of the streets differently in different situations, that would also relieve a lot of, the car owners, the business owners. We have to just find a really good way to incentivize alternative transportation, but not also penalize people who either need it for business or for other purposes. So finding balance, I think, is super important when we're looking at this. What's right in CB4 might not be right in CB1. And that's, I think, the point of the master plan is to look at each individual neighborhood. And I think that messaging needs to get out there a little bit more. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you. And I see, Lucian, why don't you speak, and then Detta?
Yeah, hi. I observe a lot of votes. I was on a community board before I was a district manager. I was on a community board 11 in East Harlem. I worked with community boards when I was at the borough president's office as their urban planner. So I've seen a lot of votes, and abstained votes are definitely gutting, especially when a resolution goes down that where education, if education was really the factor, then it could have been prevented in some way had someone known that there were questions that were left unanswered. And I think that you all are really doing a great job at exploring ways to address the I need more information part of the abstentions. And when it comes to the other side of abstaining, using it as a way to diplomatically say no without having to be painted. Thank you. Painted as a no vote. That's going to be something where people have to push back in the process on one another and challenge each other as to what is left unknown, and I think that's a part of it as well, because the abstention really should be somebody signed on late, they didn't hear the presentation, someone truly just doesn't know how to make heads or tails of what's being discussed, and it's good to kind of explain what you don't understand before the vote even happens, when possible. But I do agree that it's very, very frustrating.
Well, thank you. And before Detta speaks, I was thinking of putting together maybe an email that we can go through all board members, but give them links to both the draft resolution in advance when they're normally sent out, the streets plan, they can go read it on the DOT website for the specific, all the details they want to know or not, and a link to this committee meeting on YouTube. So for those who want to be informed, at least they're given more information where they can get it.
I do think you need to take a look at the whereas statements that are backed up with the resolutions that we have passed and when. More than, the Neighbors Association advocating, but where Community Board 1 has already opined. That I don't see that.
All of these things that are listed here, I have them footnoted, and at the bottom they have links where they can go directly to the resolutions. I've looked up every resolution and every letter from a chair. And then some of these with a
I
letter.
love the dates. You see how you have April 2022?
Well, that's to remind me.
Actually, I think they belong exactly where they are, and you can still footnote them, but I do think that it's really important to have that on the because that's what they're. If we're having troubles with people reading the resolutions, the footnotes are there for documentation for city agencies. But I do like when I see it in Manhattan Community Board 1, request for barrier protection for bike lanes on Center of Lafayette Street, passed by resolution on is consistent with, right? I mean, when did we say that? Where are we on record? Because that has also a lot of meaning when Alice Blank and I often talk about we've already done so much work. Where is that work reflected? This is one of those opportunities that we have as a board to show this and to show other board members who may be new, who are abstaining. And goodness knows we may have new board members on by the full board meeting, filling those 4 spots we have right now. 3, because Michael's still here. But if that's the case, then it's even more important to have on the whereas statement when we have gone on record and what Community Board 1 has said. I am
Footnote says that.
In the
It
where
gives the date. It's going to be so ridiculously long. If Michael, if you don't mind, share screening and show just to see how long the footnotes are on this thing. I took a lot of time to do this.
Yeah, let me pull it up. Give me 1 sec.
Great, because just looking at the page, they can see just how much detail it is.
Even if it's in the footnotes, I would like the whereas to say as passed by resolution with the date, and the footnote can have the actual resolution linked to it, but I would like the whereases because it's a very strong statement and it shows the work that that the board as a whole has already done and lets people know where we have stood already.
Yeah, Michael, if you go to the end of the page, or can show the whole page, just to show the balance of how long this is. I mean, look at this. And these things give, with the link, they actually say when, and I'll make sure they give the month. But I had to put the pages that it was, because they link, the whole month's worth is lumped together.
I understand. That's why all I'm saying is put month and date, month and year.
And I will add those to the footnotes, but I am really against it in the whereases because visually it is overwhelming and people just don't read like that. They just don't.
Well,
I've been on too many committees.
I recommend
run these things through and
if you all agree on what information, the principal information that should go in, we can workshop it after this. You don't certainly have to format it in committee. Do you think that we're far enough along to vote on this?
Well, if you want to go to the next slide, I can, or go to the end, you can just see the written part, the draft for what they're voting on. Yeah, so because another change was the first one, oops, disappeared. This first one wasn't changed. The second one isn't changed. There's an addition made. This and to fund projects in Manhattan Community District 1, including, and then it lists the projects that are in the whereas statements. So I might as well ask them. And it's not limited to, notice it says including. So any comments you have to make about those, let me know. And then we can vote.
Including but not limited to.
Want to just change it to including but not limited to? Sure.
I was also just going to say that, yeah, I'm in favor of this, and I'm also happy to help out with, like, we can kind of trial and error a few formatting things to see what we think is the most readable.
For executive, yes.
And
keep in mind, Betty, people are happy to support the work that we have done already.
Mm-hmm.
Most of this, I'm estimating, and I'm curious to hear your thought on this, that we have already opined on probably, my guess is close to 85% of the points that are in here.
Well, that's what I tried to do. That's why I ended up looking at a lot of resolutions to find the things. that we have opined on, we have voted for, they haven't been implemented yet. And say, these are the kinds of things that they're compatible with what the funding is for. So Patrick Vendetta.
Yeah, I just, now I'm a little procedurally lost. We're going to vote on this as a committee ourselves and present it to or through the executive committee at Tammy's suggestion, but not for a vote there, right?
Correct. For education only.
Then I understand. Okay, thank you.
Vendetta?
Okay, so I liked what Michael Francoeur said about keeping motions short, but I understand there's so much we want to convey in this that it's long. Also, I mean, I've enjoyed looking at this 95-page plan a lot, but if we are struggling with board members, who aren't, even if we give them a link, they might not do the due diligence. I'm just saying, just in the interest of educating people ahead of time, and I don't like, if I feel like this plan has already done a lot of our work for us, because if you look at the goals, those 10 words, and then you look at the subheader under each of them, it's excellent. And then of course there's 2 paragraphs under each, but maybe just in an email that goes out, it could just be the 10 goals and with the subheader under each, like safety, enhanced street safety for all street users, equity and corporate equity into New York City's DOT programs and projects. And then like mode shift and transportation options, that's about reducing congestion and emissions. Like I don't know, I don't know if that would be some bite-sized thing that people would be willing to read, 10 bulleted points with 10 just 1-sentence subheaders of these, like in an email or something that gets sent out, because we're looking at 20 votes in favor, 10 against, and 14 abstentions. So it's like, you don't have to convince that many people in order to get it to pass.
No, you're right. It's going after the abstentions, really.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, and Vicki?
Thank you, Betty. Nice to see you all. Well, I was just reflecting on the community board meeting that I think most people had apprehension about, citizens, right, checking and what was the awful word, snitching on each other. I think that was their biggest problem. So why don't
that was separate?
That was a different resolution. Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, if it has something contentious and it's separate them, and it really is like a lot of people put a lot of effort into this community work, but if something is 20 pages long, it be, to be fair, it's just too long.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I also wanted to ask you, would it be possible to make a comment about an issue at the end of the meeting? To add something, or do you not have time for that? It's about sidewalk safety. I had an issue I wanted to bring up to the committee.
Oh, okay. Yeah. After we get past this.
Thank you.
A separate one, yes. For future business, that's always welcome at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, if you'd like to vote, if there's a second, and I'll turn it over to Lucian.
Second.
All right. Great. Here we go. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Abstentions, anyone? I dare you. I double dare you.
A second class exemption.
Say, Mitch, don't you dare.
I'm just teasing.
Any recusals? Because I will recuse you off this board. Okay. Sounds like all are in favor. Yeah. Sorry for the shenanigans during the vote.
Okay, thank you. Then we can go on to the next item.
And thank you I really do want to say thank you to the committee. This is a tough one, and I appreciate your due diligence and taking it back and running it through the mill again. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for taking to executive for educational purposes. Yes, and if I can convince Michael and probably Jess when he comes back to consider attending executive, that would help to have more voices.
Yeah, sure thing.
Great. Street co-naming. I have written to people who've said they want to be on the working group because there'd only be 4 of us anyway, and have not heard back from anybody. So what I was considering doing, based on the number of things that I've heard with past co-naming actions that we've worked on, was starting to do some rewriting a draft and then starting to run it by and run it through full committee instead, because those who've said they're interested could still attend full committee meetings and opine on the topic. And full committee still had to be the ones that voted, not the working group anyway. So I wanted to get some feedback from people on, is that workable in your minds? Pat Moore, since you were on the showed interest in the working group.
Yeah, and I have to apologize to you. I started back to work, and so it's just been crazed. And I saw your email. I kept intending to write you, and I just haven't. But yeah, I think it would be possibly a good idea to bring it up at you said full board, correct?
No, at full committee. Just let the transportation committee do it versus the working group. The people on the working group who are not committee members could certainly still participate and opine, such as you're doing right now.
Yeah, because I mean, I attend all this meeting and I'm not I come every month and I'm not part of your committee. So yeah.
You are an unofficial member of this committee.
Right, right.
Right, so what I can do is create some drafts and start to get feedback from people, which would make it workable to do at full committee. Because we still have other things we need to do in committee, and I don't want to hold them up. Okay, well, I'll give it a try and you can opine. If it doesn't seem to be working, we'll take a look at it. Next slide. More work for me to do. Updates and news before we get to Vicky. These are the quick ones. Next slide. This is all visual. New York City DOT, for those who've been asking about what are the markings and things that are going to be done, these are the kinds of things you can look at. So we see the yellow hashes. Things to give the pedestrians a little more visibility, and forcing a little bit bigger turns is where DOT is going with. Also, you'll notice some pedestrian islands that are painted in when there's bike lanes. For those who are very concerned about how do they get across the bike lane to make the cross of the street, this is the solution the DOT is putting out there. You have to read their tweets. Next one. Again, the streets don't belong to vehicles. The streets are for the public. This is the Commissioner Rodriguez coming to New York City to make it more bikeable, walkable, and public transit oriented city. So again, you can see this was only very recently, and it was a press conference with Eric Adams and the commissioner of the DOT. So again, consistent with the streets plan, not a surprise, but they're making more of a full court press. Next one. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. In Crane's business, they're starting to look at some of what's going on our streets and why they look so crowded. So I thought you might be interested in seeing some of the numbers that they came up with. The city's on track to add over 500,000 newly registered vehicles. That's a 34% increase from last year. That's the DMV statistics. Bridge and tunnel traffic is averaging more than 900,000, or it's only 4% below pre-pandemic. Keep in mind, only about 20% of what people are back in their offices, and it's already this horrible. When they looked at New Yorkers planning to drive, as of the end of July, they had issued 242,871 learners permits. So a lot more people are planning on driving as well. And that's a 25% increase over to pre-pandemic 2019. They suggest for the year, there's gonna be a 144% increase over the number of new drivers in 2019. Car-related businesses are proliferating. This was pretty amazing, and I think I have a graphic of it. But as far as people selling cars, repairing cars, doing those sorts of things, the numbers are way up, with businesses expanding or opening to take care of the cars that the people are driving. Subway traffic is down to a little more than 2 million a day, which makes it about half of pre-pandemic numbers. So the MTA's got a lot of work to do. More people are paying for parking. That's consistent, again, with more cars. You'd expect that. And last month, there was a 2% increase on transient parkers compared to 2019. So it's not a huge number. In July 2020, there was an 88% increase on monthly bookings over the previous year. So the big increase really came last year, not this year, over last year so much. So if you think the roads are crowded, they're only going to get a lot more crowded. But I just like to see it visually. This was the businesses that have to do with cars. And so you can see more of them, more space for them. So they are voting with their money that there are going to be a lot more drivers on the street and cars in the city. Next one. Yes, and Mayor Adams is committing more than $900 million for engineering on the streets. There's your street safety. They've launched a $4 million campaign to educate drivers, which has come under some critical acclaim, but in both directions. And also they're pushing for Albany's the home rule for our traffic cameras, which again, we've already passed a resolution for. Next, in favor of. Next. This was kind of interesting because he would be more with CB2, but their city council person is going to have a law, the New York education law, if you're not aware of it, I wasn't, already requires all school districts in the state to provide students with instruction in bicycle safety. And they don't do it. But nevertheless, it's already there. So he's pushing, in fact, to force the schools to consider enforcing this law and doing something. So again, will that drive more children to be interested and families to using bike lanes? We'll see. Next, for the news out there. And Pat Moria, if you'd like to speak.
At least if the kids know the rules of the road for bikes, they'll teach their parents, because their parents certainly don't know riding on the sidewalk and riding against the traffic.
Well, it's always a good starting point. We'll see. Governor Hochul has announced that they're going to make it easier and more affordable to get to LaGuardia. And again, they're making no bus fare for the Q70, the LaGuardia link, starting a couple days ago. So it's in effect now. And again, the comment that most of the people that take the bus aren't using it only for that. And so they would be paying fares anyway. Nevertheless, so people know. Next.
Eddie, any word of them doing the same thing on the M60 to LaGuardia from 125th or just the 70?
That was the only announcement made. And that was, again, obviously done at the state level. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's what I heard too. I just hoping it was, all right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And Mitch, I think the success of the Q70 is so great that they're only eliminating the fare, I think, mostly to make boarding faster so they can get them moving.
No, they need to. For people coming from the airport, it's terrible. It's like since you can't pay in money and people don't have like coins or change, like to get on at the airport. It's a nightmare for tourists or for people coming from other parts of the country. So I agree with that, but I was just hoping that they would have done it on the M60 too.
I'm sure that they'll make that change. I think it's a great change that will make its way to the M60 as well.
And half the people don't pay anyway when they go on that bus anyway.
Well, I was saying, keep that in mind, Mitch, because once the Q70 is gone for a little bit of time, we can always look at doing a resolution if you like.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. For Brooklyn, this one, and this was more to ask people about their interest in even looking into it. The problem of license plate covers and destruction. You've seen the people who bend their license plates, who use expired plates from other states, usually just paper ones that you're pretty sure they probably ran off on their printer at home. If anyone starts to see this as an issue that you want to get into a resolution on, I'd be interested in hearing. Because we can certainly do that. It's certainly it's proliferating as a problem.
It goes with placard, illegal placards too, Betty. You see that problem, the two of them tied together all the time.
I mean, I'm just seeing, I mean, plate covers were one thing, but I'm just seeing so many people just take their plates off and put whatever, you know, something they printed, something they bought on Instagram for $5 or.
Or they'll
There's
put
no
electrical
question
tape
I've
over part of
reported
it
it
to
to,
obscure
and
it.
there's no
Yeah.
place in 311 to report it because you can't just report a problem with a plate. It has to be, if you're reporting illegal parking in the notes, you can write the problem with the plate. But if it's legally parked, but it's just in a, you know, problem with the plate, there's no place to report it on 311.
Although if there was a resolution, that could be one of the actions you ask for.
Right, yeah.
It's just 311 to do something. And the issue is if there's always the cameras, traffic cameras, speed cameras. That's obviously what they're doing it for right now. The concern
And
is
tolls,
also,
right? Like
well,
easy
and
pass.
tolls. And if there's going to be congestion pricing, they would be beating that out too. So the
Right.
question is, at what point do people want to talk about it and potentially take a stance on it and say, wait a minute, the cheaters needs to end? And Patrick, what have you got to say?
No, sorry, I interjected inappropriately earlier that you know, this goes along part and parcel with part of the illegal placard enforcement. And just to give you one example, I know about, so not me, but someone I know who called about a placard car that had been parked for like 2 weeks in front of their building and hadn't moved. And they got a call back actually from the first precinct and the officer from the first precinct said, well, no, we traced the license plates through our license plate readers, and that car, you know, has gone through the tunnel several times in the last week, which was complete BS, but beside the point. So the license plate readers are used partly in enforcement, it appears, in determining investigations of illegal placards. And so when they're defaced, when somebody puts electrical tape over them, they bend them, they put the you know, smoked out blackouts over them. It's a problem that seems to me, at least, to go hand in hand with illegal placard parking, and it's could be part of a resolution in that regard as well.
No question. Some of the people around me like to paint the numbers white so that they kind of blend into the background. So yes, no, if there's an interest in it, that's another topic that we can look at for a future resolution.
Yeah, I mean,
Is it worth it?
I'm seeing an explosion of those temporary plates where you know, you're only supposed to use that if you bought that from a private person, so you couldn't get a dealer plate, and they're just, yeah, I'm just seeing so many of those.
And they're often expired.
Well, and some of them are like Texas, Georgia. I'm like, really? You bought that from a private person in Texas and you drove that car all the way here and you didn't have time to go to the DMV and get a plate? Like, I mean, it's completely fraudulent.
I will say that the mayor just appointed a new sheriff, and I believe the New York City sheriff is the one who needs to crack down on these license plates. That's in the purview of the sheriff, the tax avoidance and fraud in that way, right?
The sheriff was at the police, and then he was at Children's Services, and now he is at Department of Finance as a sheriff.
Okay, well, we can look into that, and if anyone agrees that this should be something we look into, let me know.
But thank you, Lucian. I didn't even know that was the fake license plates were supposed to be reported to the police. I mean, the sheriff.
And this, actually, the next two are letters to the editor and the local broadsheet. But this to remind me to tell everyone, please go to Quality of Life for the cobblestone streets discussion. Because it's important that you opine, as with others, and also get educated. Because again, this is going to be a heated discussion, I'm sure. but for any kind of resolution, you really should be privy to hearing the conversation.
Betty, I just read this letter, and I guess this falls under it's impossible to please everybody, even most of the time, because
Well, let me tell you, as a physical therapist, I so disagree with this letter that it's beyond crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like it could be like apropos for this one person, but it's I think 99% of people that are dealing with disabilities or physical therapy, let alone non-disabled bike riders or cars that get their front ends messed up. I mean, I think you have to go with the majority on this,
No, I agree, but I want to point out, as a physical therapist, I want to point something out.
Okay.
She makes it sound like the physical therapist is advocating this as a road, which absolutely is not true.
Right.
What she's saying is go on it as your exercise. Most
Right, I
people don't
understand.
go outside to attend because it's like doing sit-ups.
Right. It's basically using the cobblestone as a Bosu ball for balance.
There's all
Correct.
kinds
So
of things
this
you
is
can
not
do
for
balance
function.
exercise.
No,
Right,
because
they're
it
not
says
using it for function.
No, I know that it says if you read one of the sentences, walk on the cobblestones for balance, and that's what
Right.
I do the Bosu ball for.
Well,
What drives
exactly.
me
I was going to say,
crazy-
so first of all, what she says is a non-functional, and the whole point of the discussion at Quality of Life is people using it for function. It's their street.
Right.
And
But
also,
also,
nobody
she
seems
also
to be
acknowledges that it is destroying the frame of her bike.
And it doesn't say, she says, as a disabled person, and with all due respect, I don't mean to make a joke, but is there like the Seinfeld thing, does it have a lisp, or is it somebody that's on a travels like you, that's not mobile? I mean, so it doesn't say what the disability is.
Yeah, no, it's, other than she uses
the
a
other thing-
tricycle and the fact that her therapist advised it for balance, I'm
Yeah.
going to guess there's some balance problem. But the
And
next
Betty,
one
no one
is,
seems to be. I'm sorry. Nobody seems to be taking into account that someone died as a result of falling on these cobblestones. No one seems
again,
to be.
but the people who write to the editor aren't privy to the whole story either.
And I broke 2 fingers
Oh,
on
no.
my fall on the cobblestones.
Oh,
Terrible.
Yes,
I didn't know
anyway,
about that,
next
Jenna.
one. Just so I can remind everyone to go bother Pat at her committee meeting and talk about and learn about cobblestones.
You'll be there too.
Wouldn't the argument that one physical therapist advised them to work on their balance by walking on cobblestone streets indicate that cobblestone streets are implicitly like an obstacle course of
Yes,
sorts?
it is. Exactly.
They're good for your core.
So,
I'm just gonna add here, Betty, if I may, that the problem with cobblestones is that they're badly installed. Like everything that
That's
we
true.
have, I mean, when I ride over it, I call it my kidney removal. And, we go to Europe and there's lots of cobblestones. At first, they use the wrong shape of the stone. And then, it's not flat, or at least have a curvature that works with the street. And they're just really badly installed and maintained to begin with. If we had that improved, then we can discuss, the safety. But I mean, this is now a killing fields, I call it.
yes, no, I'm going to leave all that to Pat. This isn't our committee talking about this. So I just want to remind people to attend because I think it's important because they are
Yeah.
streets. And next. Lucian, did you tweet this?
I responded in our account and I said, Gadzooks, I know where that is.
Yeah, that's what it
That's
says
what
at the
ours.
bottom. This made me laugh when I saw the picture, and then later when I saw it retweeted with the comment of, I know where this is. Just kind of, this is to break up the humor. Because it does look like a vase, doesn't it? This one, the next one. For those who don't like to write resolutions or don't like to write anything else, I thought you would just chuckle with this. A manuscript writing cafe where they won't let you leave until your work is done.
What country is this? Is this China or
No, it's Tokyo.
Tokyo? I'm sorry, I couldn't see the front of the person.
Yeah, no, I thought maybe we need to do this in our district to have one for community board resolution reading. And you can't leave and go to the meeting until you've read them all. But, I mean, this is an extreme, but rather humorous. Next one. Oh, this is completely humorous. This was just talking about how fatigued the elephants get. They're in migration, and this is in fact in China, and them all sleeping as a group because they're just tired out. I thought you
It
might.
looks like the approach to the Holland Tunnel.
We hope it's not that slow, but yeah, sometimes it seems that way.
That's the
So-
funny thing. That's why people cut down vestry sometimes.
Well, and so I want to invite Vicky to speak about her request for a future meeting topic. I don't want to forget that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
God, I could go on about car congestions all day and night. But I really want to focus on pedestrian safety in FIDI and especially sidewalks now. So, our neighborhood being the oldest part, having narrow, crooked streets, it's part of our charm. As we all know, recently, the e-bike traffic has increased on sidewalks, and it's at this point out of control, right? As I'm sure we all know. I'm out on the road, I bike, but I certainly follow all the rules and never on the sidewalk. I wanted to ask you, on our block here, on John Street between Gold, Cliff, and Pearl. So it's on John between Gold and really Pearl. We have a construction site of a very tall, 38-story building taking place at 104 John Street. And the sidewalk is closed. And we are now forced to walk on the street, cross, go back. The same landlord has the Titan School, which in all of our opinion, the location wasn't thought out well at all. So there is unbelievable traffic, and pedestrians again are forced to go on the street. E-bikes now come on the sidewalk to avoid the school buses. And then as the grand finale, this landlord has eliminated the rear door. So all move-ins, all deliveries, everything is done on John Street between Cliff and Gold. And I cannot tell you what an unbelievably dangerous this patch of street, this little patch of John Street has become. Is there anything we can do to force, owners to be responsible owners and citizens of Lower Manhattan? If you do not have a rear door and this much traffic is caused by your tenant, which is the school, and your construction site, the sidewalk on this side of John Street is truly a minefield. And I was wondering if you guys can, help at all by looking into this and seeing what we can do with a negligent landlord.
Krishna, I'm going to turn that over to you first.
I'm trying to think if
because that is
that
the very
building-
stretch we wrote a resolution for as well.
I have a question about that. First of all, I work right there, so I know exactly what you're talking about. But secondly, if he closes the door in the rear, don't you need to have an emergency exit?
You are a clever woman. We not only have a block second means of egress.
Right.
I was thinking of asking Betty to come and do all of us a
That seems like a fire safety issue.
It is. There's no second means of egress, the wrong hardware, the wrong doors in and out.
Right.
And
but if you get the fire inspectors to come, I mean, he should have had a permit to close that second door. Don't you think, Lucian? And that at least if you get the fire department there for an inspection, that's one way of starting to tackle.
And the building department, we have to have a second means of egress. The rooftop door is locked. The rear door is locked. It doesn't have the correct hardware, the panic hardware to push out. It's a glass door that is locked.
And then the other issue is that you're absolutely right. I almost got run over by an e-bike today on John Street because I work right there on Cliff, So I think we should also reach out to Brian Nelson and at least see if we can increase the patrols right there. And you know, the cops have got to start giving tickets to
Yes,
bicyclists riding on the sidewalk.
yes, yes.
So I think, you know, we should reach out to Brian and have a conversation with him about,
But
we've
because
already asked.
I'm sorry, I was just going to add, but because of Titan School, now there's a construction site. So the construction site fence stops John Street pedestrian sidewalk traffic, right? But you can't escape it because it's a very short sidewalk from Gold Street. So now you have the school parents, the school traffic, the construction traffic, the e-bikers. And last week, somebody stepped over a pipe that was connecting the fire hydrant to the construction site. You guys should have seen the explosion and the amount of water soaking everything in sight, including someone moving in. So the sidewalk is completely covered in boxes. And this is all happening because one landlord makes decisions that only suit himself. There's no rear door. They installed a ramp, which is completely illegal. We have no ADA access. Mothers
So
with,
let's get DOB
you know,
out there.
like all of that, I really need your help with because this little block, now that you're here back on Cliff, you just come a couple of times a week and you'll see what I mean. The sidewalk is more dangerous than just walking down the street.
Vicky, how do you know that people can't use that second means of egress?
Well, I live in this building because it's locked.
Oh, it's your building and you can't
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I would call the fire department since you live in the building and you could say that, you know, the second means of egress is blocked from my building. They would have to respond to you. That's 100%. If it's your building, that's
Right.
easy to do.
Right.
And I'm
Do any of
sure
your other neighbors complain? It seems like you're always complaining about your building. Where are your neighbors?
Right here.
Yeah, exactly. No, they're
that Patrick?
schooling. They're
Yep.
all, Patrick lives up this, just on
So
the other
then you
side.
guys need to get together, get some more neighbors and complain about this.
Well, I
school as well.
Oh, the school has created an unbelievable congestion.
You can't do anything about the school. He's
Yeah.
already rented it to the school.
No, the school though was using that other entrance.
You mean at the rear on Platt Street?
Yes.
No, not anymore because all.
Well, not if it's locked.
Yeah.
Patrick, speak.
Yeah, I want to just interject. I can confirm a lot of what Vicky is saying, and just to give some context. Well, let me give that in a second. But I can confirm that it seems even recently, even since we visited this issue around the Titus school, it has gotten markedly worse. So, for example, last week, to Vicky's point about move-ins, I saw a truck. Just I think it was a moving truck block the entire street. A guy got out, put cones down, and started directing traffic himself down Gold Street, just completely closed John Street on his own privately. It was amazing. And was yelling at cars, no, you can't go here, you got to go the other way. To back up and give some context, the owner of this property, 90 to 100 John, has been a problem plaguing this neighborhood for more than a decade. Everyone complains about the Gold Street Bridge, and what they're talking about is the scaffold that runs from John to Platt Street along Gold Street. The owner of the building at 90 to 100 John Street has had plans in the works to finish their local law 11 facade repairs for years. I know this because I'm on the board of 80 John Street. We've had to coordinate with them. And the one-time superintendent of the building told us, yeah, plans are going to happen next year. Work's going to happen next year. It never happens. Somehow, this owner of this property, it's Moynihan Group.
Yeah.
They're able to take out permits and build the new building that is being built next door to that building. It's outrageous. This is a lot bigger than just transportation issues, though. Bringing the Gold Street shed idea back into it is very much a transportation issue because that becomes a huge choke point in this little corner of the neighborhood. But it's something that I think with the community board's help, we could put a lot more public and community attention on from the transportation perspective, quality of life, land use, permits, licensing, everything.
Yes.
because this is it's an enormously it's gone from just being sort of a laughably unsightly little area to now completely dangerous, because Vicky's right, it's one group. And Vicky, I didn't know about all the other stuff you guys are experiencing actually living in the building. That's horrendous. Lucian's right, call the fire department. But it seems that the problem is compounded because this particular developer has gone unchecked within this community, building
That's
as
right.
of right and working within the as of right scheme forever. And I think it's time for us to put some pressure on them. I'll volunteer and let's figure out how to do it. I don't know how, but let's figure it out.
I can help you. If it would help me because of what I do. It's very hard for me to call the fire department because it's almost
Fair
like,
enough.
and also, I don't know if you know, but now they're gonna take all the 14 floors of commercial space and renovate it into residential. And I'm like, short of you taking up the entire sidewalk on John Street, this cannot happen. They don't think anything through. So there's like utter panic here because there's just no more space for them to do anything. And then, of course, on the corner, there's Stouts, and that is one busy place for these
Okay,
pets.
but Vicky, so the other thing is, like I said, so your other neighbors need to get involved. You need to call 311.
They do,
and
Pat.
tell
Everyone
them.
calls. People are in lawsuits.
Okay,
with
but
them.
wait. Have they called 311 about the locked door? That's number one. File a complaint that it's a dangerous situation, that the door is locked, that they need someone, an inspector, to come to the building, and and it's an illegal situation to lock.
It's a danger to life and safety.
Exactly.
And any time of the day that you feel inclined, I would call 911, explain to them that the second means of egress of your building is blocked. They won't break your door down. They'll say, is there fire? You say, no, I just want to let the fire department know that my building owner has blocked our second means of egress and they're violating the fire code. And they'll send a truck.
They can
and
also
they'll
call
walk in
311
and they'll
to.
inspect. Well, I will call 911 for this.
I would also note those can be done anonymously, correct, Lucian?
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Because
you
I
can do it
don't know if you
anonymously.
guys know, but 2 years ago, when they were demolishing the garage and we were going crazy through COVID, you know that they asked the commanding officer prior to Commanding Officer Smith, and through City Hall, called the police station. And do you know that 3 policemen came to my house to kind of like check on what my concerns were? And at that time, Anthony was still around, so he really helped me. But can you imagine opening the door and seeing 3 policemen? They're here to mediate. And I said, you know nothing about mediation. You came here to intimidate me. And I did speak to the previous commanding officer, and it was made clear to me in writing that this was the landlord. So I don't want to have that kind of trouble. I mean, to have 3 cops, it freaked me out.
But Vicky, the life and safety issue around a fire exit being closed is huge. In a building that in the last couple of years had a massive apartment fire.
Remember
Right?
that?
Yeah,
If you want,
I saw it. It's amazing.
If you want, next time I'm in the office this week, I'll go to your building and I'll call. They can.
Would
Your
you?
landlord can try to intimidate me because but I could do that. But I would urge you to do it sooner if you're comfortable doing it and asking to be anonymous.
That's why, Lucia, that's why I would have, if she could get some neighbors to call 311 and say there's a dangerous situation existing, then she doesn't have to be the only one and it's on record.
Well, and there's a school there if they would complain.
Yeah, if you could get but I would be a little.
And 911 is the number to call. 911.
Okay, so then
because you need to get routed to fire and let them know. Do it during the day. Say, I'm calling because my landlord has blocked my second means of egress, and they'll come and they'll issue a violation with a demand to correct the condition, and at least it flags the building. And should there, God forbid, something happen, it's clear that your landlord is negligent.
I mean, it's like, we've seen all these places where doors have been locked and people have died from fires. Yeah. So that's number one. Number two, I would again let Brian know that there's been a lot of problems with bikes and traffic and trucks and move in and move out, so that maybe he can assign, or at least ask the cops to do an extra circle around the block while they're patrolling.
We just need, I think Patrick's right, we really need kind of a community effort here. I mean, the fact that this egregious act is overlooked. The fire department has been here a lot. I don't know if you know, but at Christmas time, we had no cameras and a 34-year-old man died in our stairwell. For 6 days, he was dead, and someone discovered him in there. I mean, can you imagine? So it's all because no one is really doing the right thing, which is to say the fire department came, there's no ADA button. They already know that. We have a ramp that doesn't conform. You can kill yourself if you are, in our building. They went up to the roof looking for this man.
We'll get
They knew
DOB
he was
there to
locked.
get some complaints.
We do
You're an
complain. Well, I told you, because this is, this is something that after that police thing, it was really uncomfortable. I'm not used to having that kind of intimidation and people coming to my house, but so I was reaching out to see if I could get like, a kind of a wide body of help, because we need like the ADA, the fire department, the DOB. The building has completely gone rogue.
Vicki, why don't you write down some of the problems and incidents, such as the dead body being there for multiple days, such as finding the door locked. By all means, follow through with the 911 and complaining. But especially since Patrick's already agreed to do, wait 1 second, Pat. Well, Patrick has already agreed to assist with this one. If we could put together the list of the problem, maybe as it's via executive committee or somehow orchestrated with Lucian, we should come up with, I agree, a list of the different approaches to tackle this problem.
I'll start a list.
Well,
and I'll
the reason why I
email
want to know why the dead body was there, though, is it that someone got into your building illegally and died in the hallway?
Well, we had no doors, we had no lock system for over 2.5 years, but luckily, no, our building has turned into this building, like a lot of them now, has turned into student dorms. They have increased the rents to almost between 4,000 and 5,000 for a studio. So now we have 2 or 3 people per studio, and I've spoken to Tammy about this, and I think I wrote to you.
No, but the dead body,
So
was he in there?
what happened was that the party from Thursday night to Sunday night is unbearable, and someone held a wild party. They call them pharma parties. Did you know that? And why are they called pharma? PH pharma. It's because you bring all your drugs, you put them in a pod, and then someone took something, and whatever he was, he crawled away, and we couldn't find him.
Okay, so it wasn't like he got locked out or locked in and something.
No, it's just a party place.
Okay.
Everyone, I have a recommendation. I mean, number one is if everyone's worried about retaliation, I wouldn't have this conversation on a recorded meeting.
Oh, I know. Don't worry. It occurred to me.
But the second thing is that I think that this is the kind of conversation that we don't have to discuss in the public meeting. I think this is something that we can work on. This is not necessarily board business, and also we won't have a quorum of members if we just kind of streamline it. So I think we can brainstorm this offline. We don't have to be in the meeting.
I will write a Word document as a startup with what we know, and then I'll pass it along. Okay.
Okay.
That would be helpful, because I think there are some things with the DOT that, because outside is a problem as well as inside.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's it.
Sounds like that's everything.
See you guys soon.
All right. So you're all adjourning?
Thanks so much.
I'll adjourn.
Thanks, Betty. Thanks, Lucian. Thanks, Michael.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody have a good night.